So I'd like to just bring you into my process here. And I thought all of the pieces fit in an interesting way. The last time we met, I think I was with and am always with, but particularly, the beginning of this second phase of our leadership group. And I was with, well, this question that keeps coming up: who are we? What are we doing? What are we here for? And the sense that we need to live the answers to that, but that our intention is to be a connectedness with ourselves, with each other, and with the larger world, that sense of connectedness and intimacy and realness that we're working on. And it seemed like last year, when we were sort of summing up, and the first session with Rosa and with Joe, and Annette was part of that also, talking about how conflict seems, resolving conflict, dealing with conflict, we've been playing with holding conflict, resolving conflict, is at the core of what gets in the way of the connectedness, and what gets in the way of our being able to use focusing as a kind of steering the boat. And so it seems like a very important subject. But last time I wanted to give you all of my thoughts about, what we're doing and what we're here for. And then when there wasn't a response to that material, and BJ brought up this new email platform, and we got into that and the conflict between BJ and Jim, and there it was, the conflict that we were talking about. But I was still with, why aren't people responding to all the work I did to put this thing together, and thinking about the larger picture of that, which I think is very, very important, what we're responding to implicitly. But I was missing the very thing that we've spelled out that we're trying to do, which is to not skip over conflict, to not fall into conflict, to not get overwhelmed by conflict, to not ignore it, and all of the other things that we do with conflict. But I somehow forgot that in the moment, and I was going to a higher level of abstraction, and realized afterwards that I sort of missed the boat there. And strangely enough, then I got this audio of Jean, or I had gotten it before, but I found a way of really listening to it and sending it to you. And it was so amazing to me that 50 years ago, the focusing community was dealing with the same kind of issues. And it particularly struck me that Jean talked about the hurt in the changes community when business and processing were mixed together, and people couldn't really respond in a processing way to the business thing. and they're trying to have the business done by the people who are really interested in that, or anybody else could come at a different time. And I thought that was just interesting. I don't know if that would work for us or not, but it felt like company. Here we are 50 years later dealing with some of the same issues. Maybe 2,000 years or 5,000 years ago they were also, but we're hoping to carry forward what they did 50 years ago. So just to say another word about that, I think 50 years ago, what they were discovering is really centering on the implicit of the person, the individual, and not on the implicit of the group. But there was a lot of group process then in that audio. So then the next thing that happened in my 2 weeks was that I was teaching the class in China. That's very exciting. It's 100 mostly young people, therapists, and they wanted me to talk about focusing and guidance. And I gave them that interview of Gene about how his father was able to make these life and death decisions, and said that he was making them with his feeling. And they had pinned all their hopes on this address in Holland. And the father talked to the man for 15 minutes and came out and said, no, my feeling says no, we're not going to do this. And they had no place else to go. And the story is so amazing and so sort of heart-wrenching. And I had a wonderful experience teaching that to the China class, and I asked them to find a question that they needed an answer or a guidance about that was really important to them, and then to have the felt sense of just that question. And so I thought to myself, Gene's father, and then Gene spent his whole life asking this question of what kind of a feeling is it that can tell you what to do. And it's quite amazing to track how he approached this experience that he had as a child, and wanted to know what's the secret. An important part of it to me is that he didn't just as a child idealize his father and say, he's magic, but instead he wanted to know how his father did that. He believed that it was something that could be taught, something that other people could have, and then really devoted his entire life to understanding that and portraying that. One other little detail that comes to me is that when he was studying philosophy at the University of Chicago, and they asked him as a young student what philosophers he wanted to study, he said, I don't want to study what the other philosophers have said. I want to understand where they went to find what they said, to the larger realm at the edge of thinking, which is such a beautiful definition of focusing. And I thought, this is not only to navigate life and death situations, but to navigate our lives and our group and our understanding of conflict. And I think it was that night that that it struck me through the impact of other people, what was happening in Israel and Palestine and the terrible, terrible place that conflict, when we talk about conflict, are we talking about a little tiny grain of sand, or are we talking about this huge thing that can blow up the world? And there needs to be a link to understanding the little grain and then somehow seeing that larger picture of this evolutionary process where we're trying to understand conflict on all of its levels. So I thought that an important way to go would be to start with an attunement, just to help us to get to that place that Gene spent his life trying to give us, this place of finding the feeling that can tell us what to do. And I think maybe tell us what to do about conflict. How do we hold it? How do we name it? How do we not ignore it? How do we not fall into it? How do we not reify it, is a word that the analysts use, like thingify it, it's this or this. How do we hold the complexity of it? So maybe we have a couple of minutes. Maybe you want to just respond briefly with anything that you came with, and then we'll do the attunement together, and then we'll just see where we go. I'm wondering if you could see how all of those strands that I was describing went together.
Can you guys hear me, Lynn?
Yeah.
Let me just get in here because I'm having a really hard time just sitting here. And that for me, given who we are, a focusing oriented community empowerment group, that not to land on what's going on in this moment immediately and to almost like bypass it, and now that's like an opportunity. It just for me, it almost felt like I was in the middle of negating what's going on with so many. And this is such a great opportunity for trying on focusing and seeing how we can hold both of these things, right? Because both the Palestinian people and the Israeli people are suffering a great deal. And I think it's so important to be able to bring forward what focusing stands for in terms of the and holding both places equally. And then in reading, and I'm getting a little like, flustered. So I'm just going to take a bit of a minute and a pause.
Dusted. I didn't get that word.
I'm getting flustered.
Flustered. Oh,
and
flustered.
I feel like my body temperature is rising.
Mm-hmm.
And even in reading the paper that you send out about Jean's experience and the experience of oppression, and that here we are this many years later. I mean, and that oppression is still a thing. That is still a currency that is valued by so many. And I really want to lean into that place of the focusing where I can be able to, in every way, not like choosing, I'm going to hold this, but not that, but being able to choose to hold and honor everything that is arising. I have friends, dear friends on both sides, dear friends on both sides. And I'm struggling with how to, you know, show up for
Mhm.
people in under these circumstances.
Right.
And so would would have loved for the space to have been open with what was present for people around that in a focusing, not in a diatribe and just talking way, but in a focusing way. Um, for me, I'm like torn. I am torn to see what's happening.
Yes. Yes, me too. Yeah. Well, I think that this is the space to say what we came with. And then after the attunement is that space to talk about you're talking about the both andness of focusing. There's also the felt sense guidance of focusing. And I think there's also this issue of not ignoring the group, the conflict in the group, and not ignoring the world, and not ignoring the individual. That there has to be all of that, the individual, the group, and the world, in whatever place we start. Does anybody else have anything you came with? And then we're going to come right back to that place.
I mean, you know, I've been feeling very sad about what's happening in Israel and with the Israelis and the Palestinians. But also, I've been for the last 2 weeks, I've been thinking about what is my responsibility as a group member to us, and then how what happens here affects us to all of us, and then how do I express in a way feelings in a way that it doesn't push either side that that we can that I can hold people's issues in a way that people can express without feeling bad or that they're terrible, they're awful people. So it's been in my mind. I mean, in today I was like, oh my God, I'm afraid. I don't think I can say anything. I think I won't say anything, but so it's been a very struggle.
A struggle to show up and to say yes, to have a voice. Okay, I really want to stop at 6:30, so let's do this attunement. That will be very brief. There's a lot there for us already. A lot. Layers and layers of complexity, of feelings, of thoughts, of confusion, our desire to be in the world the way we want the world to be. And yet we may want different things of the way the world should be, at least on more superficial levels. Let's go down, if we can, to under all of the thoughts and the emotions and complexities and tornness. Just that bottom place of the feeling of being here as we are, with all our struggles, with all our confusion, with our power and our helplessness. What does that felt sense, feeling place say right now for each of us? It might be something that seems irrelevant, or it might be something that seems superficial. Whatever it is, let's give a moment to just listening to that still voice within us. And maybe even asking, what does it want me to do or to be right now? How can we, as a community here, how can we take one little forward step in terms of being with conflict in a focusing way, allowing for all of the voices? As Isabel said, being on everybody's side, being on the life forces side, and all the suffering people, including ourselves. What's needed? What's needed from me right now? And what do I need with these difficult challenges? We have this quiet moment, and if something came to you, maybe you want to jot it down. That's a very good placeholder. Then if you don't get to say it right away, you won't lose it. And let's come back to the room. Rejoin each other. Really look at each other. Thank you, BJ, for putting on your camera, and thank you, Annette. I'd love to see you, Kate, if you're comfortable. Okay, our meeting is beginning. I wonder if it feels onerous to speak.
I find it heartbreaking that there's so much in human nature that draws us to these conflicts that can just be small within families and groups and can turn into these horrendous wars. And I want to go back to Martin Luther King and Thoreau and people who have found a more peaceful way of doing it, but we don't seem able to go there very well. And it turns so frequently into such painful attacks on one another. It's just so sad, the things that we fight over. I get angry with both sides when they won't just come to some conclusion and stop the fighting. And I mean, I know that's extremely Pollyannish, but I still get angry with it.
Hmm.
So today, I think for me, um, there's a couple of times when we've been together and I don't know that it's been this configuration of people, like everyone, but that some of you have been here. And one of those times, it almost seems like those times for me are mile markers in this group. One of those times was the murder of George Floyd. One of those times was January 6th. And one of those times is now. And one of the things that I'm going to say is that in those moments, there's a deep gratitude to be in this space, to be in this community. There's something about the holding that happens here, whether I experiencing it in that moment or now I come back to it later, but there's something about the holding. And for me, even the silence is a way of, even that is a way of. And then the other thing that I want to say is that, in reading what the paper that you sent about Eugene and his experience in, escaping the Nazi and all of that, one of the things that jumped out to me, it's how that experience is what shaped him in some way. It was that experience that shaped him, right? And
Yeah.
so, maybe I'm being a little egotistical right now and hoping that all these experiences that we have shared together will continue to shape me and soften my own heart, right? Because ultimately, I think that for me, this is what I'm here. Community empowerment. I want to be able to have a voice. I want to be able to be heard. And I want to be able to say what I need to say in a skillful manner, right? And I also want to be able to hold off of those places, the pain and the joy together. And so, I think that this document couldn't have come in a better time, honestly speaking.
Mhm.
It could not have come in a better time for me.
Right.
To notice that this was the catalyst, I think. I don't know that it was, but the catalyst for Gene sort of like connecting with that part of himself, the felt sense, right? Because even in this writing, he's talking about like, I'm not sure we were safe yet, or if I could actually write it in my diary. I wasn't sure, right? So that's that hesitation. And I think that then he says, my father got a cigar and smoke, and then I felt the relief. And I could write. I didn't think he wrote Free at Last, but if he had known Dr. King, he would have probably written that. Free at last, free at last, free at last.
Isabel, when you were saying that this is one of those moments that we're together in a moment in history, and that you're happy to be with us, and feel a solace, and somehow when you were saying that, I felt it, and it was as if you were giving that to me, or reminding me, or helping me look for that sense of, oh, here we are, and we're really putting so much of ourselves into trying to understand connectedness. Nancy, when you were saying it's human nature, there was something in me that wanted to say, well, it's not human nature, but it's how, it's our needs, it's our trauma, it's our so many things, right, that bring us to that place.
I fear it's a piece of human nature along with many other pieces.
Yes.
And darn, it just keeps breaking through with so much horror. Yeah. If only there was a way of squelching some of the pain that goes into that. There's always pain and fear beneath it all.
I mean, last week I been talking about conflict and what's underneath and what's behind it, and I attacked Marvin. I said some things to him early on when Lynn was presenting, and I also felt bad because I took over Lynn's presentation. I felt, a lot of guilt and so on. And then I attacked Marvin, and then I realized, what was behind it. And then, I had been angry at you, Marvin, I felt your persistence, and I feel like it, almost feels like trying to destroy the hierarchy in the group, which I don't feel there's the team, I don't feel there's a hierarchy there, but it seems like for you, it brings up a lot of feelings. And I had felt a lot of anger. I wanted to reach out to you in the summer and call you and talk to you, but I was angry. And then last week I attacked you, um, so I just wanted to say that. And regarding the conflict between Jim and BJ, I guess I'm intrigued and curious about the anger between the two of you, and I'm open to whatever happens, in the group with it. That's all.
Roberto, could you just remind us of how you attacked Marvin?
What do you say? I mean, um, there was something about, um, I felt, I mean, and I don't want to say things that are hurtful to him, but, so, here again, we're talking about, how like we're talking about war and saying something that might hurt somebody, and they throw a bomb, right? And the other people are hurt. So I just want to try to be careful how I say things. But I was kind of uh, it was at the beginning, and then I think Lynn was talking, and I guess I was sensing, often he's questioning and dissatisfaction and happiness with, which is fine. I respect that. This is him or whatever. I mean, it's nothing has to do with me. And then I said something about because of our focusing attitude, we were able to hold a space where he can express this dissatisfaction, questioning, anger, at length, and so we're holding that space for him. And then something, I guess I felt like, that I felt like he wasn't grateful um, to what we've done, and then but I felt it was an attacking way. I mean, and then deep inside was my anger about uh, my perception of him wanted to just kind of feel like destroying the the team, the team that meets with Lynn, and so just this anger at him, because of that. So
I'm wondering if somebody else will reflect what Roberto said.
I heard Roberto expressing the experience that he's had in looking back over the meeting 2 weeks ago. And he's becoming aware that the words he said the words you said, Roberto, to Marvin feel now like an expression of anger and resentment, and that you went on at length in doing that, even though you know that Marvin has the right to question the authority of the hierarchy in our group.
Did that capture it, the feeling, Roberto?
uh,
What
much, I mean, but I felt that that maybe the thing to have said then is talk about my anger rather than attacking Marvin.
Mm.
That
Mhm. Yeah, that's why I think to say time has passed and things have turned, and it sounds like something of a shift to me. This dawning awareness that, oh yeah, it was my anger that was my issue.
I wonder, Roberto, if you could ask the anger what it needs.
I think I felt that it was appropriate, that I felt threatened, I feel threatened and unsafe, and then, therefore I felt anger. So I felt like it was an appropriate feeling for the situation, there's to being threatened and safe, and feel, oh, somebody is trying to take something away from me, trying to destroy it. And so, but I guess it's the expression, how, how I did it. Instead of saying, I feel angry, I just attacked. And I mean, I don't feel bad about being angry. I feel bad about attacking.
yeah.
So,
I was also reflecting on my, participation last time and realizing that I didn't say any I statements. And I think that's the difference between, anger and attack, to say I feel this way, rather than you are doing this and this.
The interchange with Roberto and me seems so small in relation to what's happening in the world that I am very hesitant to say anything. I'm grateful to be here, and I'm quiet today. To just respond to Roberto, I didn't take what you said as an attack on me at all. What I took from it was that you felt that the group was containing my frustrations rather than pushing me out the door, because I had said that on many occasions that I really felt an outsider on the edge of being in the group and wanting to belong in the group. So I didn't take it at all as an attack on me. So I'm in a way, I'm sorry that you felt that, you experienced it in that particular way.
I think it's an example of the holding environment that we have here, that exchange could happen now too.
Well, I didn't take it that way at all, Nancy. I took it more in the sense that Gandlin and others speak about the beginnings of the changes group and the frustrations and all the arguments and that they had in that beginning, and all the struggles that they had and all the hassles that they had, and that they could put up and survive all those. But it wasn't a matter of containing, it was a matter of each person being willing to take the chance to risk expressing themselves honestly and authentically in the group setting. And that's something that I value very much about this group.
I'm just hearing Marvin's lack of defensiveness. I just find that very healing as I take that in. And also yours, Roberto, and how honest and complete you were about telling us, what all the things you were feeling, what you were really feeling. Is there something more that's here?
I was just wondering if the Palestinians and Israelis have any forum where all the voices can be heard. I had been much more aware of the conflicts a few years ago before COVID, and I had friends that were really sort of working on with that, but I lost track of it in the last years with COVID and my partner's illness. And I know that there are many people, Israelis and Palestinians, that want to be able to talk to each other and not just demonize each other. But I was just wishing for that, you know. And maybe there are small groups of people that are doing that. I know there's such heartfelt wish for peace in that part of the world. And it feels like it holds, as Nancy would say, human nature, but it holds something of the struggles of society and all that the world is facing, and going from one stage of being to this new stage of evolution with technological transformations that are sort of unworldly. Anyway, the feeling was of wishing for that. But maybe I should come back to also wishing it for us, that we can see the connection between our own struggles and the larger struggles.
You know, I thought, maybe there was something in, I'm giving just an example that in Bolivia, that apparently the drug cartels are growing, and it's becoming a problem. And then some people were writing on Facebook, it is our problem. This is our, so what happens here, the conflict that we have is our problem. It's it's ours to deal with. The same for the Palestinians and the Israelis. And my wish is for them to have a forum to talk. I mean, because I don't know how else peace is going to achieve that. This is going to continue ongoing, and it's going to destroy us. It's really terrible.
I somehow want to hear from Masumi about anything that is on your mind there.
Yes, what I was thinking was, well, when I went to Israel, I had a feeling that the people in Israel and people in Arabic countries must have been taught from childhood to hate each other. It's the education that they got somehow. And then that hatred went into blood, so that they are automatically thinking that either side is the enemies. And I didn't understand it. I just stopped there and came back to Japan, and we are now facing the hatred, not politically uh, not in good terms with China now. But knowing Kate is such a luxury for me to be able to erase such relationship between the countries, so that what I was thinking really, apart from the discussions I was hearing, how important to have a personal relationship, and to become eager to know that person, eagerness to know that person and learn from that person erases somehow the larger conflict between the country. And I was hoping, as I heard Lynn, if there were any small group that would try to have better relationship between Israeli and Palestinians. And it's the personal relationship is what we can do for the world peace, however small. And yeah, that's what I was thinking. There were more, but that's what I can say in English now.
I know there's an Israeli Palestinian orchestra. That I think means a lot to the people who play in it. And I'm not sure if it's like a youth orchestra or maybe more accomplished musicians, but there's something about music that opens one, I think. I think it's wonderful that they have that.
And sports too.
Yeah. I think there are many small groups. I had a good friend, a Jewish friend, who was for years very concerned about the Palestinians. And I think there are all kinds of efforts to have like exchange students, things like that, and groups of people who are working with this, trying to get to know each other as human beings too. But this other is so strong, the hatred, the fear, the demonizing.
I forgot to say I lived in the United States at the age of 17 as an exchange student. And there I met students, high school students from 70 different countries. And we had meetings and group activities. I learned that generalization is the beginning of the misunderstanding. Just to know, as I said before, just personal relationship is what ought to become the basis of thinking, not just generalization or stereotype thinking. And so I'm so grateful for learning that in my early age, that when I hear some generalizations, oh, Americans are such and such. What do you know about America? There are so many different things when you say Americans, different Americans, So I tend to, when I hear some generalized expression, I tell myself, no, don't believe that.
such good points.
I'm just feeling so sad. I wonder if other people are. Just this heaviness and this sort of heartbreak.
I do too. Yeah.
That's my feeling also. I took part in the rally on Sunday, the rally for Palestine and against depression. And I was just saying, I was standing with the Jews for Peace. It's a little small organization, maybe 4 or 5 of us. And then it's probably, I mean, there are 1,000 Palestinians or young people that are supportive of the Palestinian situation. And then right across from them, there are Israelis holding up the Israeli flags, countering the Palestinians and shouting back in forth today to the rallying calls of the Palestinians. The police are in the middle. Took me back to the late 1960s, the time of the Vietnam War. There's so many difficult things that we're facing in the world. We don't seem to have a way to cope with them well. And that's real sadness.
Yeah, real sadness. Mm.
Jim, during our to the arts in your
Did you say something to me?
I couldn't hear that, Isabel. If you could say it again.
I say that I was wondering how Jim was doing and what is keeping him company.
Well, I'm going to try and tell you. My feeling is, and it's a feeling that I know of working with patients, where they see whatever their problem is as somehow divorced from the rest of their life. That, now I only have this obsessive compulsive problem. Everything else is fine. If we just pluck it out and throw it away, everything would be wonderful. And I think we deal with conflict the same way. We talk about it like there's this conflict that's going on over there. And yes, we have some here too, but let's ignore that because that's a bigger one. But conflict is who we are. We're not strangers to it. It's part of us. And we have to own it. We can't pretend that, I mean, my feeling when I arrived today is it's just so civilized here. I can't tolerate it. Reminded me when I was a kid. My family, which was from the point of view of a recent arrival on this planet, total chaos and craziness, we're all civilized. The civilization is the anomaly. The conflict, the difficulties are being ignored. They're being talked around. They're being seen as some extraneous problem that we're going to fix so we can then move on with our everything else. But they're not extraneous. They're in the center of everything, and they're in the center of everything here. That's what's going on with me.
Thank you. Appreciating naming that. I think that at the beginning I might have said spiritual bypassing or bypassing in general, and I think that is along the line of what the language you are using, which is being civilized. So, if this goes away, we can just go on with our life. And I think that for me, and you have heard me name this for myself many times, I am both kind and enraged at times. I am both a peacemaker and a warrior. And, and I want to make peace with those parts of myself. And allow all of them to have a place and not validate one and negate the other. And it really brings me back to that piece around the more, right? It really brings me back today to that. And to be able to hold both of those places with kindness, with curiosity, with care, rather than trying to extinguish one and it's out the other. So kind of like that. Thank you so much, Jim, for bringing that forward and naming that.
Jim, would you venture to say a little more about the difficulties in the last meeting with you and BJ so that it's not ignored, so we don't ignore you?
I don't know what to say about it at this point, actually. My feeling is that's insoluble, that we'll fix Israel and Palestine before that. So maybe that's where we should put our attention.
I'm wondering if you have a felt sense or an idea even of what it would be not to ignore it. When you speak about it, I think, I am trying not to ignore conflict in myself and conflict in the group and conflict in the world, but I don't know how not to ignore it. And I just wondered if you had an image of or a feeling of what it would be for us in this group right now to not ignore conflict and not fall into it.
Well, there's no trick to not ignoring it, but the trick is to not ignore it. Basically,
Are we ignoring it?
yeah, I think so.
Can you tell me how I could not ignore it or what I'm doing to ignore it? I need something a little bit more grounded or something, or specific or something. Because I think you have something.
Of community empowerment. I don't feel empowered enough to do that. In that sense, community empowerment is failing me. If I felt more powerful, I would address that. I feel more
Tell me what.
more that the problem is too large for me. And I don't want to engage in it and feel defeated at the end. So I'd rather just sit here and watch.
It seems to me that there has to be some real pain underneath what's going on between you. And maybe the pain is too great to touch. And maybe that's why the conflict isn't being addressed or feels impossible to you. But I wonder if some little bit of that pain could be exchanged between you, if there could be developed a little bit more understanding of what's behind it and what's really there. Because so often the conflict is on the surface and there's so much underneath it. And until that gets touched, things don't get solved.
Well,
And
my
I don't know if that's
experience is
possible.
that problems always look a lot easier than they actually are. And, somebody comes into therapy with some problem, and you wonder why they're still there 7 years later, feeling that nothing has changed. Because things are not simple. And not everybody wants to work on things. I'd say most people, most of the time, don't want to work on things.
It's complicated and it hurts.
Well, maybe, Jim, the group could empower you to dialogue with me a little bit about, if you were empowered and you were going to tell me how I'm ignoring the conflict or what I could do to experience it more, engage more. Maybe something could come to you there.
Well, I don't feel like I can single you out as, oh, you're the one who's ignoring it.
No, just, no, I'm I'm not being singled out. I'm just being an instance of something. I'm letting my cat out.
I'm also an instance of it. I'm ignoring it the best I can. But I'm not as good at ignoring it as some of the rest of you.
Could you run that again, Lynn and Jim? I just lost you before your cat. Before
Oh,
your cat out.
I was inviting Jim and maybe asking Jim for help in terms of some kind of image of how I could ignore conflict less, because that's one of the reasons that that I initiated this whole project, is that I'm a conflict avoider from way back. And it's very automatic for me to ignore conflict or to try to pass it up or something. So I thought that maybe there would be something, maybe not even explicit, but implicit in a felt sense, that Jim would have to say to me that we could have more of an honest, genuine exchange.
Thanks.
Maybe the honest, genuine exchange is in my saying that I, in part, started this project because I don't want to ignore conflict. I want to be able to engage.
Lynn, forgive me, please, but I think we're ignoring BJ in this. And we need to bring her in.
Well, BJ can bring herself in too, right? I mean, not, I'm not pushing you, BJ, but I'm saying, like, we all have our own responsibility too. And by the way, I'm also really good at ignoring conflict. And I can I can sense what Jim is saying, like feeling a little bit like alone. He needs group. You know, we're in a group here, and so it's not just Jim and BJ. We are all here, and yeah, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I had my own experience in the group with being in a conflict and feeling that it was ignored. So there's that too. Maybe BJ, you want to say something? Maybe.
Well, maybe to say, especially with what Roberto has said so far, there's something about the capacity to hold something and to that the group has some kind of group vulnerability. Um, uh, that there's a way of holding, and I've sensed it lots of times from you, Marvin, that as you're understanding things, that you think, or that there's a sense that that somehow Jim and me in a room together with someone who is very skilled might be able to talk through something. And so it's kind of a curiosity to just imagine then, how is it that holding can be avoiding? Holding, and I don't know, Marvin, that your way is the right way, but the dissatisfaction. And then the other thing that I would say that's a little more personal is my experience last week was that I can really say yes to Jim's experience. It seemed last week to me that I watched the recording that you, Jim, were very vulnerable, and that the group did its best to hear how you felt, to hear that you felt somehow you were being coerced, and that that somehow there was another word I just remembered. Oh yeah, being bad. That somehow it seems you always come out at the end. I'm sorry. Could y'all hear me at all?
Yeah, we did, but that's much better.
I'm sorry. Uh, that somehow at the end you keep feeling bad, and you don't want to feel bad anymore. And that was so clear in the things that you were saying last week. And I heard a lot of people doing something that was designed to make some space for you to talk about that further, and you did. And people reflected back that sense. Some people said, you know, the way we say things, some people will say they disagree or they agree. But I don't know what could be said better. Uh, so that's that. And then the third thing I would say, just to recognize.
Frozen. You're gone, BJ.
If she's gone, she can't hear you.
Oh dear.
How do we get her back?
Just with the third thing.
Yeah.
The third thing.
She's speechless.
Oh my goodness, she's still frozen.
Is she,
Does she know it?
The second thing was, so if someone could reflect that to me, that
I
by the
think
time she gets back, we'll be ready for the third thing.
she's gonna try coming back in.
Uh,
here she
Here she
comes.
comes.
We're ready for the third thing.
Can't hear you, you're muted.
What does it mean to be a place of holding? And that's actually what I heard you saying, Roberto, last week, was just lifting up the reminder that we want to be, we're trying to be. And you didn't say those other things, but I think that's kind of where I was what does this mean? And how do we go about improving this or changing this or something? And then the second thing was that I really can say yes to Jim's experience. And I thought he was very clear last week. And basically, Jim, you don't want to feel bad. And I can get that. I can. And then the third thing is the Palestinians and the Israelis. Tiananmen Square and that young man standing in front of the big machine. I was in China that year of Tiananmen Square, just after it. And I don't know how to say these things without it sounding like something I don't mean, but I guess what I want to say is my heart is there in let's say Palestine and Israel. Over a period of 10 years, I was there 10 times. And I met lots and lots of people on both sides. And from the very beginning, we know that the Fertile Crescent has been a place where many people come together since the beginning of time. And it's inevitable that they'll have conflict there, and it's inevitable that they'll have great peace talks, and that they'll come to decisions, and they'll chop up our poor earth in more ways each time, whether it's the British or the Egyptians or the caliphs and the whoever's in charge. But I'm going on, but I'm just trying to say that for me, I feel like I'm a holding environment in my own little place. When I remember the faces of people, I remember those cities, those villages in the Golan Heights and in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem. And I feel like I'm a good holding place because I don't have a side. And I'm not done yet. But I wonder, if that's what y'all are doing. You're being a holding place, and if you take a side somehow, you aren't saying what it is. So I feel very good about me as a holding place for those beautiful people in that beautiful place on both sides. And I'd like to feel more that way about us when we say we're a holding space. So that's all for me.
Is there a way that we can be a holding space for the two of you?
You might. Might. I don't think it's up to me to figure that out.
Well, maybe you could say what you might need from us to be a holding space. What that would mean for you personally.
one thing would be for us to take time and talk about our personal experience with focusing. Times we've had a felt shift. Times we've recognized this part of me that's angry and found a way to accept that place and hold that place. I've heard Masumi express some curiosity about that before. In each of us, when we get together with each other, do we focus? Do we have a focusing conversation? What does it mean? Has anybody witnessed anybody else in this group have what feels like a felt shift? That'd be one thing we could do.
You know, I think yeah, that's all sounds interesting to me and maybe a good thing to share at some point, but I also feel like I really feel like we're here in the moment, and let's be in this moment with what there is now. And so I'm curious what there is now for you in this moment.
Oh, yeah, thank you. In this moment, I am so full of gratitude to a woman whose name is Vera, who is a focusing person in Norway or somewhere. I had a real felt shift in terms of understanding conflict in a focusing session where she was. And the part of me there was the part of, I left last time because I had come to a resting place. That the parts in me had come to a resting place, and remembering Rachel saying, maybe I stormed out like Dallas, and so maybe this wasn't a safe place for anybody else to take control. Hearing Susan, who I know we love each other so much, hearing you say that I came after you. I mean, just trying to imagine what did you mean? What were you feeling when you said I came after you? And hearing Jim say he felt coerced and he was tired of being made to feel bad. And just imagining that. And in this focusing session, there was a part of me that just didn't go away. This part of me that feels hurt when I sense that I'm misunderstood, and not really. I feel misunderstood, and that I could say yes to the experience of feeling misunderstood. It's like Isabel said beautifully earlier. I can say yes to that part of me that my feelings were a little bit hurt, Susan. It was like I just didn't quite get it. But what I got was you had an experience of feeling that someone came after you. And I could just say yes to that. And it was a shift. And I could say yes to Rachel being so brave to say, well, maybe I will talk here, even though BJ might storm out like in Dallas. And Masumi, Dallas was a TV show many years ago. Masumi and Kate, Dallas was a TV show many years ago where there was lots of family upheaval. And I could say yes to Jim feeling like he's been made to feel bad. So that's what's going on with me right now. Oh, and finally, because of that shift, I can be sweet to that part of me that is hurt. And I could say yes to yoga, just being so beautiful, and in effect saying, yes, there's been some impatience here. Yes, there's been some whatever, two other adjectives to, at the way that Jim might be feeling about the way I made the group. And it was really just beautiful. It was like she was up high in the sky, like the eagle, high above the conflict. And it's something I aspire to. And this is the last thing I'll say. I'm at this moment curious about you, Nancy. You said twice you thought everyone should be involved, and it reminded me of back there when you were really talking about wanting to do something. And Lynn said, well, how many of us do you need for you to be able to do something? And you just laughed and you said, well, I don't know, but I don't want to just do this by myself. It was just precious. And so I've just, been thinking, I've been whatever it is, I'm saying yes to your experience of not liking it if everybody's not involved somehow.
I was scared stiff of doing it alone.
It was precious. Well, and so when you said again last time, twice, that you had a strong opinion that everyone should be included, it was like, yeah, there's some part of you that, and it's, I don't see it as fear. I see it as a need, a need for connection, and a need for resourcing each other. I see it as a need for a lot of things.
It was terror for me.
I can see, and your terror was trying to protect you from something, I guess. And your terror wants something for you. Your terror wants you to have that sense.
But I got two people to help, and
yes,
I
you
was
did.
able to do it, and it felt really good.
Yes, you did. You did.
But what I've experienced now is you're speaking of the hurt you experienced last week in that conversation. And I think that I heard hurt from Jim as well. So beneath all of that, headbutting, I guess, both of you were feeling hurt. You were feeling pain. And that was what was underlying, I think, a lot of conflict. Does that sound right at all?
I felt hurt by Susan's exchange and Rachel's comment and what you said. I didn't feel hurt with Jim at all.
Oh, okay.
And if you listen back and watch that recording, I tried to say, I made this group. That group didn't work. I made this group. It does work. And I could see, my sense of it was, Jim, tell me, you can say anything about this, please. But I'll just say, it seemed to me that you said you wanted everybody to be involved, but both you and Nancy immediately joined the first group. Immediately. You guys were early adapters. You joined that Google group right away. And so it didn't seem to me that maybe it was really about needing everybody to be involved and to talk about it. Although my email was very inclusive in asking all of you, do you have ideas about how we could do it? You could read those emails. So I just thought, okay, so it's more than that for Jim. It's more than he just wants everybody included. And so I was looking at him and I was thinking, so it doesn't do us a lot of good to go into talking about the Google group. It was something else. It was something intrusive about my admitting that this group doesn't work, but this group might work. And I don't know. Those were the thoughts that were in my mind. And I realized that there wasn't really much more I could say at that time. But and I think I apologized twice to Jim if I had made him feel coerced, Jim, if I'd made you feel whatever. And then I found my resting place. So Jim, anything, if you want to say anything, please.
Got lots of stuff to say. First thing I want to say is that talking about the last time is like talking about the current Palestinian-Israeli conflict as if it just started because there's a war broke out. We arrived here with a problem.
Yeah.
The current version of the problem is almost irrelevant. Can I continue?
Please.
We arrived here with a problem. Let me just talk about what the highlights for me, aside from the fact that there's still an email I sent you never responded to, but that's not really the important part. The highlight of the problem is you refuse to focus with me. You don't want me to ever contact you, and somehow that's holding the conflict. To me, that's ignoring the conflict. To me, that's saying, well, we've identified the bad person, and since I don't have to meet with the bad person anymore, the problem's solved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe I should stop with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That even way back then, you felt like you were being made the bad person because I choose not to focus with you anymore. And it just sits in your craw as like you're being made bad. You were being made bad then, and you're being made bad now.
And I felt like he's, I mean, I don't know whether I should put words into feelings, but there was this hurt and rejection, that he's been hurt and rejected. And by that, exchange.
Yeah. That's tough because I sure have felt that too. Yeah. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. Jim and I focused together maybe, what do you think, Jim? 15 times, 20 times? We focused together a lot. It wasn't just that occurrence.
I'm really appreciating your willingness to talk about it. I really do, to both of you. That I really it's very heartwarming and just grounding. It feels good.
Thank you.
BJ, when you said that you left, not because you had another appointment, but because you found a resting place, I felt the spurt of anger. What? She just walked, she left because she had a resting place. And all of us were not having a resting place.
Yeah.
And then when you said you were hurt, it was sort of like that was enfolded in a lot of the grown-up stuff, but there was the little one that was hurt. That's what I want. I want that one that's hurt to be here, not just the grown-up one.
Yeah. Well, by being able to say to Susan, I don't get it, and Rachel, I don't get it, and Nancy, I don't get it. That's for me, that's a way of showing the hurt. And for Jim, it's like if you know NVC, my experience there was that Jim was in a place of being the giraffe, and that the giraffe cannot go to good giraffe talk in the moment because the giraffe is having an experience, and what the giraffe has to do is get it out, and then they can be a giraffe again. So I observed that. I observed by Jim's tone of voice, and when he asked me quite twice, "What about the Google group?" that there was a wall there. I didn't sense at all an opening.
Just want to say, I don't know if you can hear me, but BJ, I'm just appreciating how you are bringing all that forward, and I just have to be honest about this. I feel like there's a lot of Jim in your speaking and very little BJ.
Really, wow.
Yeah.
I don't, that's not the way I experienced it. I'm saying yes to each of you, to the things that you've experienced. I'm here with an open heart to say I want to be part of what becomes a holding environment for everyone. I don't really hear Jim at all in me, but maybe you could help me. Maybe you could help me hear that. If you want me to say more about my feeling hurt, I could say more about that.
I
But
think what I think that I would like you to say more about you in general, not necessarily the hurt. And I also want to say there's something about this moment that I think it's bringing me back to maybe it was Marvin that said it, and then Jim emphasized it, that this collective we, that we run away, but this moment doesn't feel like running away. It really feels like staying with something, and I just want to appreciate that and savor that in the way in which it's being held. So deep bows of gratitude, not just to you, but to all of us, for staying here.
So, but you're saying, I hear that, but you're saying that you don't hear me. You don't hear the real me. You don't hear what you
No, I didn't say
expected
to
to
hear
hear.
you. I say that I hear a lot of Jim in this, and I want to hear more from you and about you. Whatever it is, it doesn't necessarily have to be about the conflict or this and that, but more about you. I have always appreciated what you bring. And, I think that you and I had a bit of a dance on January 6th.
Yeah.
I'm not going to forget that. But it was a beautiful dance, nevertheless. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because the place where you and I connected on that day was in the place of motherhood. I don't know if you remember that.
That's
and
right.
You can go to the videotape if you want.
What was happening to our children?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I am grateful for that.
Well, thank you. Me too.
What I heard you say, Isabel, is that that you wanted to know more of BJ's feelings. I think it was similar to what I was saying. I would want to know how Susan misunderstood you. And
oh yeah, okay. Susan, would you talk to me about that?
Where are you, BJ?
Yes. Hello.
Just a minute. Can you hear me?
I can.
I've been wanting to talk to you. Yes, I will. Sure.
Good. Well, let me say what I heard. What I heard was you said to Jim, that Jim had said maybe we didn't need this because the names were listed individually on the website and we could get them. So maybe we didn't need this. And that I think the word you said was, and I didn't say anything because I was confused. And then BJ came after me.
I remember that BJ came after me.
Yeah.
I can see why that would hurt you. It would hurt me.
But you know what? It didn't hurt me very long
Yeah.
because I love you and you know it. I just love you. And it came because of that wonderful interview we did about dignity therapy. I liked you before, but I love you now. And so, yeah, there's a part of me that felt like, well, what's that about? And was hurt.
Yeah. And I thought about it for these 2 weeks.
Oh,
No, I think it's good. I'll try to tell you, I was not happy with, after our, after our meeting, I think maybe it was the next day, this came back to me, the whole thing that I was saying. And in a very bad way. And I had to spend time focusing on what's happening with me, because what I felt was that what I said came out, I spoke sideways. I did not, I was taking sides, and I was making, it felt to me like some jabs at you. BJ, and I had to, not sure how much depth to go into this, but say a bit. I do not like, I fear detecting stuff with the computers. I'm getting worse at it.
yeah.
As you know, I have fears about my mind. I never was very good, but the come after me was, I think, here she comes with, I have to do something more technical. I have to remember, gaggle, something or other. It's like, there's this part of me that says, get away from me. I don't want any of this.
Sure.
I have so much trouble with it as is. It being the whole email, the whole stuff with the computer. So I think I had a very, cavalier attitude in what I said, which was, she came after me like I'm making you the bad one, and was covering my feelings of threat about this technical stuff that I think you are very good at and you like. I don't. So it was my feeling, get away from me.
So it sounds like you're saying that there was this, that you continued to process it, and you did focusing about it, and that there's a part of you that is worried about what's going to happen, what's coming.
Right.
And I've thought of that ever since way back when you and Nancy were talking, and you said, when y'all, and we were talking about Nancy's wanting people with her, and you said then, I want to talk about being old. So what I want to talk about something like that. Do you remember that at all?
No, I don't.
Well, at any rate, whatever you said, it really just grabbed my heart, and I thought to myself then, I should talk to Susan and say, me too.
Mm-hmm.
And
you have a bit, and in our focusing, and actually, you said something which was very helpful and endearing to me, because you're talking about, losing one's faculties, which is, for me, and for those of you who are not quite where I am, it's really terrifying for those of us who think that this is happening, or happening a bit. Anyway, I think I was telling BJ in a sort of focusing that we were doing, and BJ said how she comforts this part of herself that is afraid. And rather than, as I tend to do, worry it, and so I've never forgotten that. And that's Thank you.
Mm.
There's a
Don't-
hard thing that I have to say, which I came upon, which is that I'm have a hard time with, I think our rhythms are very different. You're, to me, quicker and more defined, and I am slower and more meandering in my inner feeling of my process. And I sometimes feel you're really ahead of me, and will say, reflect back to me, say how I am before I know myself that I'm there. And I feel some, what would you say? I don't know if threat is the right, but that I think that was in the tone of how I was speaking about you. It was,
Yeah.
all I would say is it wasn't nice.
Mm.
And I think that's where it was coming from.
Mm.
That's the biggest place that
Mm.
it was coming from.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can, how that lands on you to say something like that.
Oh. Well, it's really very helpful because it means that when I'm reflecting people's words to them, I need to always say, "Is that it? Does that get to it?" And hopefully, the person might say, "No." I'm not speaking, and I'm not speaking to you indirectly. I'm just saying, because I don't remember ever hearing that from you. I don't remember ever hearing me that you were, that you experienced dis-ease. So you hit it very well.
Well, and I'm annoyed with myself that I don't say, hey, just slow down, or wait a
Yeah.
minute.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's very
Everybody.
good. Yeah.
Well, of course it is. And I'm saying, of course it is, because I'm feeling right now little, I can't even think of the word, caught with my pants down feeling.
Oh, yeah.
But that's okay.
Mm.
So
Well,
anyway, I really understand that you would feel you wouldn't like the way I was talking about you.
Mm.
I wouldn't either. You know,
But
I think,
I get it.
okay.
And that's good instruction for me. That's very good instruction for me. That I used to, when I was giving a lecture or something, I would make little notes. I mean, like with one word, and stick them around on the podium. So just that, like, slow down. That was always one of my little words. So maybe I need to do that again. Put them up on my screen so that I'll remember that.
I'm
I actually think it's a listening preference, and it's, Susan, it's something you can ask for. You can ask for just mirroring, that you don't want active listening. You don't
I
want
often
her to
do.
use her own words.
I think this is deeper than a technique, though. This is my, I don't know what it's my, how hard it is for me to just say, hey, wait a sec.
Yeah.
I don't do that naturally. I try to match the other person, and then I'm mad at the other person. That's the sort of dynamic.
Well, there are always two people, right?
What's
So
that?
together, you're together, right?
Yeah.
Always two people. Yeah.
I really
I think-
appreciate Susan, you're risking so much. I mean, I really
Yeah.
appreciate, risking what, and saying what you're saying and going deeper,
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And yet, I mean, it feels not like a risk, because there is a deeper understanding.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Um,
It's beautiful. Yeah.
I mean, I ask myself, what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of
Mm.
saying?
Mm.
It's like
Mm.
a, yeah.
Mm. So it's a deeper understanding. No, it doesn't feel much like a risk, but a deeper understanding.
Well,
Yeah.
And right now,
Yeah.
it's not a risk. It's simply say this is who I am. This didn't feel good. I don't know why I'm so used to not I guess not speaking or trying to keep up with the technology, with with how I think I should be. With the other, keep up with the other person with the technology.
Susan,
Church bells, which means that it's 8 o'clock.
Oh my goodness.
I'm really glad that you, Susan, and you, BJ, were able to sort of come to a resting place. Speaking of resting
yeah.
places in your dialogue,
Mhm.
and I know that we're leaving with a lot that people have to say and things hanging, and maybe we can find a way of writing down what we would say right now. I know I have things to say, and other people may also.
Lynn, I got to interrupt and say one thing to you. If I had been here last week, I would have been with those people who said, I do not think that you should not give any kind of a talk, any kind. I believe that you have a profound gift for teaching, and that by God you should teach. And that's a part of what makes it work. So that was another place I was hurt, was that people actually even had hesitation about whether you should have done that. I was just so astonished and so glad to finally get the handout. I love the handout. I didn't feel that it was in any way oppressive. So just other people, of course, can feel how they feel, but that's what I would have said had I been here. So I won't say anything else.
Okay. I just want to be clear. I wasn't saying people felt that that
You
I should teach, but that might be an implicit something that was going on in the group, which I wasn't staying with the immediacy of the conflict, but my understanding of the similarities there, of your conflict with Jim, and the sense of larger conflict in the group. But I don't have time to talk about that
Sure.
now because it's 8 o'clock.
Sure.
But thank you, BJ, for your appreciation of my teaching. And I put so much of my teaching online, so anybody can get my teaching anytime they want. And Kate, it's nice to see you, your face, after being hidden for a time. Any last things, like 2-second things that anybody has to say before we stop?
I have a 2-second thing.
Good.
And I want to say something to BJ. Now that we're talking about our conflict and we're going to work it all out, or at least potentially, will you be paired with me again? Or is that still too dangerous for you?
I did take issue with the notion that it's dangerous for me. I think when we talked about it before, Jim, that I focused of the net's guidance, and that I was able to say that it's not about you at all. And so when you say, would you be willing to focus with me again, it's almost like I don't quite know how to answer that.
Yes would be an example of an answer.
No, then, if that's what we have to do. No, Jim, I'm not going to focus with you anymore. And it's not because I think you're bad. Not at all.
I think that the conflict, that's the dangling place that that we don't understand
Hmm.
in that view.
Wow. Well, you know, people don't want to get married. People don't want to have pizza. People don't want all kinds of things.
That
And I
there is
don't,
deeper meaning in not wanting to get married and maybe even in pizza. But we
and
don't
maybe,
have time. Maybe we
no,
could pick up right
yeah,
here
yeah, maybe. Let's do.
time. But let me just propose that I'm just asking, and you could think about it, how it would be to focus with Jim with somebody else, to have a triad.
I would prefer for Jim to focus with somebody else because that's what you guys had me do, and then you didn't ask Jim to. So for me, at this moment, I would prefer to have Jim focus with somebody else and to understand a little bit more where he is. Because, you know, unfortunately, we didn't record that time. But that focusing session I did with Annette, I was way down in there.
Oh, I think we did record it.
No, ma'am, we didn't record it because that was when we decided, oh, no, we're not going to record.
Oh. Okay, so we're going to pick up right here
Let's do.
where we left off. I'm just marking this place that not wanting, what's in the not wanting to get married? And that will be our marking place, okay?
Wow. Okay.
Okay. Anybody else have I don't want to be the last word.
I have something. There was a curiosity with Jim when you were saying, you know, there's not enough. I don't think you used the word safety, but what I retained was safety to feel empowered. And I don't know why it made me think of this. There's this video of Lynn talking about safety, and he says something like that living isn't safe, but we can find a safe place inside ourselves. And then he laughs in the video and he says that you may have to find it every morning.
Every morning.
And so there's something about that I like about how can we create more safety inside ourselves.
Yeah.
I think, Susan, you were saying the way you were sharing today, you had a lot of safety in yourself to share. So what is ours to do? How do we create more safety? Maybe we could share some stories about creating safety for ourselves. And then what is the groups to do? Because I think it's not always on the group.
Well,
okay, so we're going to flag that up also for next time. Anybody else have anything to flag?
One quick thing. You had talked about small groups last week, and I had said I had to think about whether or not I could. So I just wanted to say that, yes, it would be nice to, if Kate has something that she would like to work on in a group, I would be glad to join her.
Right. I think there was a third person, wasn't there?
Marvin.
Marvin.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we are talking about we shouldn't ignore conflicts, but I feel sometimes it's good to ignore conflicts. I feel many conflicts are attached with emotions, but emotions are just like clouds in the sky. They come and go.
Yeah.
The point is we should pay our attention to the cloud or to the sky, or the conflicts are like stones in a river. The water is still moving, and the stones can be there. I'm sorry, there's a construction site outside, so
we don't hear it.
that's good.
I'm very struck by that metaphor, so we definitely want to come back to that. This idea that the river can still move if the stones are there.
Yeah, and for me right now, it's I should pay attention to the noise outside, or I should pay attention to what's happening here.
Huh.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I think somehow it's an ability to ignore the noise outside.
Mm. Yes.
I'm being good. I think I'm being good at it. I'm ignoring it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So ignoring conflict can be like ignoring the noise outside and paying attention
Yeah, maybe.
to the moving of
Sure.
yeah.
It depends whether or not you have the power to stop the noise outside. If you have the power to stop the noise, or at least negotiate with the noisemakers, maybe ignoring the noise is the wrong thing to do.
No, I don't think it's that way, Jim. I'm trying to ignore it because I can see the construction workers working outside. I think they need the job.
The construction workers.
Yes.
That's their job. So you
I
don't want
don't,
to
I don't like noise, but they are people like me. They need the job.
Maybe they should have an annual guaranteed income instead.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, we have to stop.
I'm sorry if I'm being too much like a communist.
That's good. That can be marked also for next time. I
Please.
want to thank everybody for our heartfelt attempts to not to deal with conflict in a Minchi way, and that's Yiddish meaning something. Somebody else is gonna have to define it. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.